In 1978, George A. Romero released Dawn of the Dead, one of the most iconic zombie films of all time. Set during the early days of the outbreak, it follows 4 survivors, a TV reporter, her helicopter pilot boyfriend, and 2 SWAT officers who escape the chaos by taking shelter inside a shopping mall. What begins as a temporary safe zone slowly becomes a prison, as they struggle with isolation, boredom, and the slow collapse of the outside world. The mall setting is an obvious symbol of American consumerism. Even in death, the zombies wander the mall, drawn to the familiarity of it. The survivors, meanwhile, try to recreate a sense of normalcy by surrounding themselves with luxuries and distractions. It's a movie that mixes horror with satire, showing how people cling to comfort and routine, even when everything is falling apart. Something that really hasn't changed in today's world, huh? Dawn of the Dead left a massive impact on the genre. It helped define the modern zombie movie and showed that horror could carry a message. You can see its fingerprints on everything from Shaun of the Dead to The Walking Dead to video games like Left 4 Dead. But no game wears its Romero influence more proudly than Dead Rising. Capcom's Dead Rising isn't just inspired by Dawn of the Dead, it almost feels like a direct adaptation. You've got the mall setting, the swarm of slow-moving zombies, the survivor drama, and that same dark humor bubbling underneath it all. You're not just watching this world unfold, you're in it, playing as Frank West. He's covered wars, you know, a photojournalist looking for his big break. I've been dying to talk about Dead Rising ever since I started this channel almost 5 years ago. I kept putting it off, telling myself I'd save it for Halloween or wait for the right time. So while I'm a little disappointed it took me this long, I'm glad I'm finally getting around to it. Developed by Capcom and released in August of 2006, Dead Rising holds a special place in my heart. It was the second game I ever picked up for the Xbox 360. GTA 4 was the first, but Dead Rising was the one I played the most. Now that I think about it, it's probably the reason my first 360 got the Red Ring of Death. I was already a fan of Capcom's other zombie series, Resident Evil, so when Dead Rising started showing up in magazines and trailers dropped online, I was immediately interested. But what really sold me was how different it looked and felt from Resident Evil. It wasn't about creeping through dim corridors or managing your resources. It was bright, chaotic, and packed with zombies. Dead Rising didn't want you to survive by the skin of your teeth. It wanted you to lift zombies above your head and toss them like a wrestler. Snap a photo mid-fight and then shred them to bits with a lawnmower like you were cutting the grass. The mall setting was great. The combat was basic but creative. The number of zombies on screen was jaw-dropping for the time, and really made it feel like a next-gen game. And I loved how over-the-top yet grounded the characters felt, especially Frank. The game wasn't just a novelty, it had some depth to it. The time system, the freedom to explore, the way you level up and unlock new abilities, it all came together in a way that made it feel fresh and unlike anything else I'd played at the time. And almost 20 years later, it still holds up. Sure, some of the rough edges show, but the core gameplay loop, the tone, and the atmosphere are just as fun and addictive now as they were in 2006. So let's hop in and see what made it so damn good. As a heads up, this video is focused entirely on the original Dead Rising. I'm not covering the deluxe remaster, which is a pretty big downgrade across the board. Outside of the updated visuals, most of what made the original special feels off in the remaster. Also, I'm really not a fan of some of the new character designs. Look at how they massacred my boy. Frank looks way too old, and that receding hairline is reaching Vegeta levels of absurdity. Better, more articulate channels already gave that remaster the beating of a lifetime, so there's no need for me to beat that dead horse. Like and leave a comment for the algorithm, and subscribe if you're new. Now let's get into it.
Say, buddy, you mentioned something about research for a story.
That's right. Got a tip that something big's happening.
In a nowhere little town like that? They sure didn't mention anything about it on TV.
Yeah, well, I'm freelance, pal. I don't make my living waiting for the TV to tell me what to cover.
Dead Rising begins with our lead, Frank West, chasing a story. It led him to the small town of Willamette, Colorado. Normally, there ain't jack shit going down in this unassuming town of about 53k people, but Frank's heard whispers of some kind of riot taking place in town. One apparently bad enough that the military has been called in. However, a quick sweep of the area shows that this ain't no ordinary riot, as Frank will snap photos of people attacking and seemingly eating each other. Before we start unraveling the mystery of the local zombie outbreak, let's talk about our lead, Frank West. He's a freelance photojournalist with a chip on his shoulder. He's covered wars, you know. He's bold, cocky, and more than a little reckless, but that's what makes him interesting. Frank isn't in Willamette because he wants to help people or uncover some grand conspiracy. He's there because he smells a headline. He wants the big scoop, the front page story that'll put his name on the map. An energy that's delivered perfectly by his voice actor TJ Rotolo. You know, DB Cooper, and DB Cooper vs. Bigfoot. Which, despite its title and cover art, is less Sci-Fi Channel B-movie slop and more like poorly disguised safe-for-work gay porn. No, I will not elaborate. Returning to our lead, what also makes Frank stand out is how normal he looks. He's not some chiseled action hero or some pretty boy in his 20s. He just looks like a regular guy in his 30s. More or less what you'd expect a photojournalist to look like, and that's part of his charm. He's relatable, and it makes it easy to slide into his shoes. Especially for me, because I'm almost the same age as him now, and have a similar haircut. Frank's out of his depth, constantly improvising, and somehow still making it work. That grounded, everyman energy makes him feel different from the typical video game protagonist. And it fits perfectly with the kind of story Dead Rising is telling. At first, Frank comes off like a guy who's just chasing glory. He doesn't take the zombie outbreak with the seriousness it requires, and isn't really all that motivated to help others. Frank wants to snap photos, get his story, and get the fuck out of there. But as the story unfolds and the truth behind the outbreak starts to surface, he starts to change. He sympathizes with the people suffering during the outbreak, actually tries his best to help, and is focused on exposing the truth for the right reasons, not just to get his name out there. After getting an aerial view of the destruction and mayhem overrunning Willamette, Frank touches down on the roof of the mall. His pilot, Ed, doesn't stick around. He takes off the second 3 military choppers swoop in, telling Frank he'll be back in exactly 3 days. No more, no less. So if Frank wants to get out of this mess alive, he needs to get his ass back on that rooftop when the time's up.
Hello there. Huh? You're the reporter, aren't you?
Yeah,
You came alone.
yeah, I'm freelance. You know, go on the battlefield alone, no crew. So, what's going on around here anyway?
You came by helicopter, didn't you? What did you see from the sky?
Well,
After speaking to a mysterious Luis Serra lookalike on the roof, who cryptically tells Frank that what's happening is no riot, the 3-day countdown begins and Dead Rising introduces its time mechanic. You've got 72 in-game hours to survive until your ride returns. And outside of cutscenes or pausing the game, time doesn't stop ticking. It moves 12 times faster than in real life, meaning a full day passes in just 2 real-world hours. And when the clock hits 0, that's it. The game ends. And if you're not on that rooftop on time, it's game over. The truth dies and the moon destroys all of Termina. While staying alive for 3 days isn't too hard, how you spend that time is completely up to you. You'll mostly be focused on chasing down the truth behind the outbreak by completing case files which serve as the main story missions. These usually require you to be in the right place at the right time, triggering cutscenes or key events. Outside of story cases, you can fill that time by running around rescuing survivors, clearing out psychopaths, and beefing up your stats by killing zombies. The game gives you the freedom to play it your way. The real challenge is managing your time wisely. The time limit is probably the most base-breaking mechanic in Dead Rising. Some players feel like it puts too much pressure on you and limits how you want to play, but I don't agree. I actually think it's pretty generous. There's usually a big chunk of free time between case file objectives, where you can explore, rescue survivors, or just mess around. Once you learn the mall's layout, plan smart routes, and discover the various shortcuts, you'll end up with more time on your hands than you know what to do with. And that's my only gripe with the system. Once you've checked off everything you can do in a given day, there's no way to fast forward time. So on this playthrough, I had multiple stretches where I played efficiently, did everything right, and then just had to wait around for the next case to trigger. Still, love it or hate it, the time mechanic is a big part of Dead Rising's identity, and it just wouldn't feel the same without it. Alrighty, let's mosey into the mall and see if we can find someone who can give us some answers.
This is no time to ogle pretty girls, son. You looking to get yourself eaten alive by zombies?
What? Did you just say zombies?
Take a look out there.
Random, but I'm glad Dead Rising calls its zombies instead of using a generic term like infected or making up their own name for them like walkers or freakers. I get that part of it is because zombie media want to stand out and differentiate themselves from each other, or because their versions of zombies aren't technically undead. But if it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, and eats human flesh like a duck, then it's a duck. Wait, I think I got that saying wrong. Well, whatever. Frank will assist in fortifying the barricade, but stops to snap a photo of a suspicious old man, who promptly loses his shit for having his photo taken. Remember, kids, respect a person's privacy, and get their consent first before taking a photo or taking video of them. Well, actually, the old guy is upset because he thinks Frank was the one who called him here to Willamette, which leaves Frank baffled. No time to ponder that, though, as the barricade fails thanks to the idiotic actions of this old bag trying to save her dog. Then all hell breaks loose as all the survivors in the entrance plaza are torn to shreds. Some guy watching the carnage tells everyone to follow him and run for it, but unfortunately only Frank survives the carnage. Reaching the security room, we'll meet a couple of other survivors, which means it's time for some introductions. The old man using a blowtorch to seal the security room door is the mall's janitor, Otis. Our savior, who promptly dips into the air ducts to re-enter the mall, is Brad. And this tall glass of water is Jesse.
God damn.
Taking a look through Frank's camera, Jessie seems to recognize the old man Frank met, but she stays tight-lipped. All she's willing to reveal is her name. But it's obvious that she and Brad are some kind of feds, and may have an idea on how the zombie outbreak happened. Striking out with Jesse, Frank decides to follow Brad back into the mall in hopes of getting some answers. Climbing through the air ducts and reaching the roof, he runs into Jeff, who is frantically searching for his wife Natalie. Luckily, she's not far, just hanging out on the other side of the roof. After reuniting the couple, Frank escorts them back to the air ducts and drops them off in the security room. Outside of uncovering the truth, this is the real meat and potatoes of Dead Rising's core loop: finding, protecting, and escorting survivors to safety. While you'll occasionally bump into someone while wandering the mall, the majority of survivors in need of rescue are reported to you by Otis, who watches the mall through security cameras and radios Frank with scoops. These scoops are basically side quests, and most involve saving survivors from wherever they're trapped, or from a psychopath who has them captive. Some scoops are straightforward: go here, find this person, bring them back. Others might need you to bring food or a weapon to convince them. Scoops slowly unlock over your 3 days in Willamette, and all of them are timed, so you gotta be strategic about when and how you tackle them. These folks are scattered all over the mall, and unfortunately rescuing them isn't very easy, as survivor AI is terrible, and it's one of the biggest criticisms of the first Dead Rising. Survivors have a hard time getting around zombies, so they'll frequently need saving. Their pathfinding when following Frank is janky, so more often than not they'll get stuck walking into an object, or other survivors. Finally, some of them are extra helpless and move at a snail's pace, so you'll need to grab their hand or carry them through the zombie hordes. You have some limited options in dealing with survivor stupidity though. You can order them to stay put and out of the way while you carve a path through the zombies, and telling them to follow you usually resets their behavior, so they'll stop running into a wall or object. Sometimes. If they get too injured by zombies, you can heal them by giving them food too. You can also arm most survivors with a weapon so they can defend themselves somewhat. Though some survivors, most of the female survivors come to think of it, can't be given a weapon. You can also end up making things tougher for yourself depending on when you choose to save certain survivors, or if you're protecting multiple of them at once, as certain parts of the mall are an absolute nightmare to navigate in a group, especially when a certain trio of psychopaths start patrolling the park. While you aren't technically required to save survivors to complete the game, it is worth going through all that hassle to save as many as you can in a run. Every time you save someone, defeat a psychopath, kill zombies, or snap certain photos, you earn prestige points, or PP for short. This is your main form of experience, and leveling up gives Frank all kinds of upgrades. You can improve his speed, health, inventory slots, attack power, throw distance, and even unlock new wrestling style moves that make hand-to-hand combat more viable, including Zangief's double lariat and Guile's somersault kick. The more survivors you save, the more experience you get. It also plays a role in which ending you receive. And while the game might seem tough at first, especially with the time limit hanging over everything, you don't lose your progress between runs. So if you die and decide to start a new game instead of reloading, Frank keeps all his levels and upgrades. So when things go south, you can always restart and come back stronger. In fact, if you're going for a perfect save every survivor run, restarting and carrying over your upgrades is a necessity. Which kinda makes Dead Rising a roguelite now that I think about it. I can't find the source where I read it, but assuming I didn't misremember, Dead Rising's system of carrying over your upgrades for a fresh run might have been inspired by the scenario overlay system from another Capcom title, Breath of Fire Dragon Quarter, which functions the same way and requires you to restart your runs multiple times to progress through the story. I won't go into every survivor I find during this playthrough, but I'll discuss a couple of the more infamous ones as they pop up. I'll also discuss psychopaths and photography later. For now, let's mosey and get the story moving again.
God, it's you. Look, don't sneak up on me.
Brad was attacked. I located him on the monitor. Ugh!
It's probably just a sprain.
I've gotta help Brad, or he's done for.
All right, fine. Give me your gun. Come on. I'm the reason you just got hurt. Let me help.
No, I can't let a civilian do that. That's against regulations.
Yeah, well, I don't think they had zombie-infested malls in mind when they wrote those regulations, kid.
You know how to use this?
Kinda. I've covered wars, you know. Look, after I'm through helping you, you and I are gonna have a nice little chat.
Now that Frank is armed and can defend himself against the Walking Dead, it's as good a time as ever to discuss zombies and the combat system. Unlike its older brother, Resident Evil, Dead Rising doesn't have different zombie variants. It's just a good old dumb and slow-moving Romero-style undead. It doesn't take much to kill them either, but that doesn't make them complete pushovers, as the massive hordes filling up each corner of the mall make it easy to get overwhelmed and killed if you fuck around. Luckily, you have tons of options to take out the undead, as combat in Dead Rising is all about improvisation. Pretty much anything that's not bolted down can be used as a weapon. Take them out with stuff you can find at your local Home Depot like 2x4s, sledgehammers, or a lawnmower. Hack them to bits using a katana or a chainsaw. Or have a little fun by using them for soccer practice, or hitting them with a giant dildo. Then you got guns, which are way rarer but definitely pack a punch. Pistols, shotguns, SMGs, they're powerful, but there's no spare ammo lying around. So once a gun's empty, Frank automatically tosses it. No reloading. Just move on and find something else. Usually it's best to save those for psychopath encounters, or handing it to a survivor you're escorting, as they're pretty accurate with guns, and they basically have unlimited ammo in their hands. You also have super powerful weapons like the Mega Buster and Z-Saber you can use, though they're locked behind some tough and time-consuming challenges, but they're so satisfying to use in every future run. And like I mentioned before, when in doubt, you can take out zombies with the combat and wrestling moves you unlock. Also, if you do take a beating trying to move through the mall, there's food everywhere you can eat to heal up. Some restaurants even have blenders where you can mix two foods for a blended drink that heals for more, and gives a passive buff that lasts for a while. Now, there are some limitations to combat in your arsenal. For one, your inventory starts off small, so you're limited in the amount of weapons, healing items, or books you can carry at a given time. Some stronger, bigger weapons can't be put in your inventory, and you'll drop them when you switch to a different item. Some are heavy too, and will slow Frank down if you try carrying it around the mall. Finally, every single weapon has a limited durability, and will break after prolonged use. Kinda like in The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Though it's not really a limitation. Honestly, I didn't think it was a big problem in Breath of the Wild either, but that's a discussion for another day. In theory, the durability system is to keep you from relying on one powerful weapon, and to encourage the player to use anything he can get his hands on. In practice though, you'll still probably rely on a handful of powerful weapons anyways, thanks to some books you can pick up. But I'll come back to that discussion later. For now, let's go help Brad. He's in the middle of a shootout in the food court, between himself and the mysterious Latino guy from earlier. So it's up to Frank to turn the tide of the fight.
Next time he reloads, I'll lay down a suppressing fire. I'm counting on you. Make your way over there. 1, 2, 3!
Random, in story, Frank and the others don't learn who this guy is until much later, but the name above his health bar reveals our friend's name is Carlito. Carlito has the high ground and will rain down shots from his SMG before taking cover. He'll occasionally toss out grenades too if you get too close to his position. You can try climbing up and bringing the fight to him, but melee is almost impossible since his SMG can stun lock you long enough so he can run out of range or knock you down to the ground floor. Carlito can be a tough fight on a fresh run if you immediately went to help Brad instead of exploring the mall, to level up or to look for long-range weapons. It's challenging but not overwhelming. Brad gives you another handgun when the fight starts, so you have plenty of shots if you didn't use up the gun Jesse gave you too. There's tons of food lying around to heal yourself, and really the fight is just about using cover in between taking potshots at Carlito. So if you're careful and patient, he'll go down in no time. After the fight, Carlito takes off and Brad thanks Frank for the help, but he stays silent on what his and Jesse's motives are. Frank gets him to start talking by showing him the picture of the old man from before, offering to take Brad where you last saw the guy, if he cooperates with his questioning. Brad caves and agrees, revealing he and Jesse work for the Department of Homeland Security. Sorta trusting each other now, the dynamic duo team up to fight through Al Fresca Plaza and open a path to return to the entrance plaza where the old man is. We learn his name is Dr. Barnaby, but the stubborn old bastard refuses to leave with Brad unless we can ensure a secure route out of town. So it's back to the security room to give DHS headquarters a call. Jesse unfortunately isn't able to reach them because their signal is being jammed, so that's when Frank plays his next card. He tells them about the helicopter that's coming back in 3 days, and if they want a seat on it along with Dr. Barnaby, they gotta play ball and give him the information he wants. Brad agrees, but he won't talk until Dr. Barnaby is secured the next morning. Depending on how fast you completed Case 1, you should have a lot of time on your hands, and Otis will be calling in with a lot of scoops to investigate. And the first one we should hit up is at the Colombian Roastmasters in Paradise Plaza. A stone's throw away from where you exit the warehouse into the mall, here you'll meet fellow photographer Kent. Kent doesn't need saving. Like Frank, he's trying to capture the chaos for himself. After finding out Frank is also a photographer, Kent challenges him to show off his skills behind the lens by snapping some photos of him. Which makes now a good time to talk about how Dead Rising's photography system works. At any point during gameplay, you can pull out your camera and snap photos to earn prestige points. Depending on the subject, your picture falls into one of 5 categories. Brutality, photos of blood and violence, usually in combat. Drama, emotional or tense moments, like survivors in danger or acting emotional. Horror, images of zombies or graphic gore. Outtake, funny moments like zombies wearing gag items. And finally, erotica, suggestive shots of female characters or zombies. If your photo doesn't fit any of those genres, it's labeled no genre, and barely rewards any PP. Framing matters, a subject closer to Frank and well centered in the shot nets more points. Some survivors and psychopaths trigger photo ops, giving you a chance to earn big PP bonuses by capturing specific actions. These are usually one-time opportunities and can require the right timing or conditions to trigger. You can also find hidden PP stickers around the mall that reward a flat 1000 PP when photographed. Also, his camera runs on a battery, so when it runs out, you need to hit up a photo store to replace it, which aren't too hard to find, and conveniently one is right next to the warehouse entrance in Paradise Plaza. While I like photography, it feels very underutilized, and it quickly gets outclassed as a means of earning PP to level up. Outside of using it for a couple scoops, like this one with Kent, you can safely ignore it for most of the game. After taking a photo of Kent and then another of him striking his signature pose, which is more frustrating to do than you think depending on how many zombies are around, Frank will win the challenge. A little bitter at losing, Kent throws down another challenge, and wants Frank to meet him back here at 12 PM with an erotica photo worth 700 PP or more, which isn't too hard if you know when and where to capture the perfect subject, but I'll get to that later. Side note, I know I said I wouldn't talk about it, but I do think it's funny how some people try to justify the removal of the erotica genre in the deluxe remaster by claiming it wasn't censorship. Their argument was that the genre never really made sense, and that intentionally taking erotic photos felt out of character for a seemingly celibate lead, like Frank. They'd say you can still take photos of women, so nothing's really missing. But come on. Sure, Frank doesn't hit on any women he meets, But like any straight guy, he's not immune to checking out a hot chick. That's made pretty clear when he eyes up both the girl at the entrance plaza and Jesse when he first meets them. The erotica genre, like all of Dead Rising's photo categories, is meant to be a satirical take on the darker side of photojournalism. It's commentary on sleazy photographers who exploit tragedies, dehumanize people, and objectify women in the name of fame and fortune. Removing it misses the point entirely, and the lack of official explanation for its removal, in an M-rated title with tons of gore, makes it feel like it wasn't done for artistic reasons, and to avoid upsetting the morality police. Sorry for the tangent, but I just wanted to get those thoughts off my chest. It just felt off to me that some really good reviewers tore the deluxe remaster apart for every one of its failures, but for some reason they jumped through a lot of mental hoops to defend the erotica genre's removal. Moving on, something I've neglected to talk about until now is the setting, the Willamette Shopping Mall. I've never really been a fan of shopping malls for as long as I can remember. I hate the crowds, the overpriced food courts, and especially the pushy kiosk workers trying to sell you lotion, perfume, or whatever. That dislike only got worse after I worked a few retail jobs in stores connected to or located inside malls. For a while, I basically became Ben Affleck in Mallrats. Just constantly annoyed at people aimlessly window shopping or hanging out like the place was a public park. I mellowed out once I got a better job, but honestly going to any of my local malls now is just kinda depressing. Half the shops are closed, there's barely any foot traffic, and every mall looks exactly the same. Your mileage may vary depending on where you live, but my general indifference towards malls is exactly what makes the Willamette Mall stand out to me. It's huge, well designed, and honestly feels like a character in its own right. There's 6 distinct areas, 79 shops, a movie theater, a supermarket, a gym, 2 hardware stores, and even a gun shop. The layout avoids the bland, cookie-cutter feel of real-world malls. Each area looks and feels different, making the mall easy to navigate and fun to explore. You got the entrance plaza, the main 2-story entrance on the southeast end, Paradise Plaza, a tropical-themed 2-story area on the east end, with various shops and a movie theater. This is the area you'll always step into when leaving the security room. Then there's Alfresco Plaza, an outdoor shopping area on the south end with restaurants and smaller stores. The food court, a western-style dining area on the southwest side. Next is Leisure Park, the large outdoor center of the mall featuring a clock tower. Then Wonderland Plaza, a colorful 2-story plaza on the west end with a roller coaster and play area. And finally, the North Plaza, the unfinished, under-construction section of the North. The attention to detail in the Willamette Mall's design does a lot of heavy lifting for the game's world building. It makes the setting memorable, a believable space that feels lived in and worth revisiting. A lot of care went into designing the various stores, with a few fun callbacks to other Capcom games sprinkled throughout. You got a Mega Man Legends reference with the Servbot mask in the toy store, a Mega Man X nod with the toy Mega Buster in the movie theater, and the obvious Resident Evil shout out with the restaurant Jill's Sandwiches. And the best thing of all, despite it being tricky to get around at first, you're free to explore any part of the map you want long before the story sends you there. You can stock up on better weapons or bump into survivors Otis won't call you about, like the twins Pamela and Heather. While the exploration element is fun, it can also be dangerous, as if you wander into the wrong place at the right time, you could come face to face with a not-so-friendly survivor. Which brings us to the Psychopaths, Dead Rising's version of boss battles. These are people who've either snapped from the chaos of the outbreak, or are using it as an excuse to act on their worst impulses. Most of them are optional, and only appear if you explore certain areas during specific times. Taking them down usually rewards you with something useful, like access to new areas, rescued survivors, or unique weapons, along with a ton of prestige points. Each of the Psychopaths are unique and are easily the most memorable characters in Dead Rising. I won't go over them all at once, but not counting Carlito, let's head over to Wonderland Plaza and start with the Psychopath most players will bump into first, the crazy clown Adam McIntyre.
Everyone used to laugh at me. I was a walking punchline. But not anymore. When the zombies came, everyone died.
Previously a performer for the mall, Adam went insane after watching his audience get torn to shreds by zombies. An audience implied to be mostly made up of children. Yikes. Despite being an early boss, Adam is tough with a moveset designed to counter almost anything you can throw at him. He's surprisingly fast for his size, constantly rolling, flipping, and leaping around the area, which makes him tough to hit. He mainly attacks with dual chainsaws and can block both gunfire and melee attacks. If he blocks a melee strike, your weapon breaks instantly too. He can send you flying with his spinning attack, his chainsaws do decent damage if they connect, and depending on your max HP along with the chainsaw's wonky hitbox, it's entirely possible for him to one-shot you if you're unlucky. So it's dangerous to fight him up close, but he's still got some tricks up his sleeve if you keep your distance. Adam will toss knives and inflate balloons that will stun you for a while if they pop near you. Finally, if you manage to knock Adam down, he'll counter you by breathing fire. John Wayne Gacy here is brutal during a first run, and my first loss to him is when I decided to restart my run to carry over my upgrades. The key to winning is avoiding letting yourself get boxed in, and the best way to hit him is by interrupting his attacks. You can also stun Adam with his own balloons if you pop them as he inflates them. Armed with the katana found on the awning, below Colombian Roastmasters for melee, and the SMG hidden in the fountain at Alfresco Plaza for long-range damage, I managed to take down Adam during our rematch. Though it was a close call, and if I wasn't carrying a couple healing items, I would have lost fast. After Adam meets his end falling on his own chainsaws, he'll drop his ID card, which lets you turn off the Space Rider ride. Doing so frees Greg, an employee of the mall that Adam had trapped on the ride. As thanks for saving him, Greg shows you a secret passage that connects the women's bathroom in Wonderland Plaza to the one in Paradise Plaza. This shortcut makes it much easier to get around the mall, saving you time and cutting down how often you need to backtrack through Leisure Park to get anywhere. Defeating Adam also rewards you with his mini chainsaw. And congratulations! You can now completely trivialize the rest of the game. Hey, remember when I brought up books earlier when discussing combat? Scattered across the different bookstores in the mall, with a few dropping after certain story moments, books will enhance Frank's abilities in various ways, provided you're carrying those books in your inventory. Though the overwhelming majority of them will increase the durability of certain weapon groups, and some weapons are part of multiple groups, meaning the durability effect stacks if you're carrying the right books. So, if I were to say pick up the books on engineering and entertainment from Bachman's books in Paradise Plaza, along with the criminal biography book from Sir Books-A-Lot in Wonderland Plaza, the small chainsaw's durability increases to over 2,000 hits, which can easily last you the entirety of the game. And if you end up losing the small chainsaw, you could just go back to Wonderland Plaza and pick up a replacement. This setup isn't completely busted, you have to sacrifice 3 inventory spots to use it, escorting survivors will still be a chore, and some psychopath encounters are kinda bullshit, but carrying a near indestructible chainsaw that takes out most enemies in a few hits cuts down a lot on the busy work of replacing weapons and makes saving every survivor in one perfect run a lot easier. Uh-oh, it's gotten dark out. At 6 PM each day, the game shifts to night. And it's not just an aesthetic change. Zombies get a lot more aggressive now. Their eyes glow red, their endurance goes up, and they become a little harder to deal with. On top of that, zombies carrying Wasp Queens start to appear. Right, I forgot to mention, Dead Rising zombies aren't your usual virus-based undead. They're the result of a genetically modified species of wasp that injects parasitic larvae into people. Once the larvae mature, they kill the host and reanimate the corpse as a zombie. Infection can also spread the usual way, with a bite passing the parasite from one person to another. It's definitely a unique explanation, though it honestly just feels like a viral infection with a few extra steps. If you spot a zombie carrying a queen, you can kill it and somehow Frank magically whips out a jar to capture it. Smash that jar, and every nearby zombie drops dead instantly. It's not a massive blast radius, but it's a great way to clear a path, especially when you got survivors in tow. But the real threat after dark? Step into Leisure Park at night, and you'll meet them. The prisoners.
right. Looks like he found our next contestant.
We're gonna take out that dude and snatch his old lady.
My god, these three assholes were the bane of my existence back when Dead Rising first came out. They ride around Leisure Park in a Humvee, one of them manning a fucking minigun, and trying to deal with them while also pushing through zombie crowds, especially with survivors in tow, is an absolute nightmare. There's no efficient way to fight them unless you've grabbed a sniper rifle or some other long-range weapon ahead of time. And the worst part, even if you kill them, they respawn the next night. They're definitely intimidating the first time you run into them, but honestly, they're not that bad for one reason. They're shitty AI. Thanks to the thick tree cover in Leisure Park, it's surprisingly easy to bait these idiots into getting stuck. You can use the trees for cover to avoid getting shredded by the minigun, then pop out, land a few hits, run back, and repeat. One by one, they'll drop if you play it safe. And once you've saved Greg and unlocked the shortcut from Wonderland Plaza to Paradise Plaza, you won't even have to cross through Leisure Park that often. The few times you do, the prisoners usually spawn on the opposite side of the map. If you hug the mall walls and avoid the open areas, you can slip past them without issue. Plus, thanks to their obnoxiously loud, and honestly awesome theme song, Gone Guru, you'll always know how close they are based on the volume. So, despite the reputation, the prisoners are a mild pain in the ass than an actual threat. Other than a few more scoops and an optional encounter with the psychopath Cletus at the gun shop, which I missed during this run, we've wrapped up the events of the first day. So let's move on to the next day and continue the main story. The next morning, the gang spots Carlito on the monitors. He's gotten to Dr. Barnaby first. Brad and Frank rush to the entrance plaza, leading into another boss fight. This time, Carlito's using a sniper rifle. Powerful, but it slows him down. So I charged his perch and hit him with a small chainsaw a few times to quickly end things. He's a stubborn vato though. Before escaping, he and Brad trade some shots, both taking hits. Back at the security room, Jesse sedates Barnaby and patches up Brad, who's now running a fever. He's gonna need some medicine. No problem. Frank West is on the case. Oh hey Jesse, real quick, I know you're worried about Brad, but would you mind holding that pose while I snap a photo? There we go. Thanks, doll. Alrighty, we should be able to find some medicine in the pharmacy attached to the supermarket in North Plaza. Hopefully it's a quick get in and get out job.
This is my store!
You came to vandalize my store! Huh? Not on my watch!
Someone's been hurt. I need medicine.
Hurt? That's just what this bitch said when she came to vandalize my store! I don't take kindly to vandalism. I won't allow it! Listen to me. And listen good, partner. I don't allow vandalism in my store!
It's probably a coincidence, but is it me or does Steven look a lot like Skibidi Toilet? Time for another psychopath fight. Unlike Adam, Steven doesn't seem to have an explanation for why he went crazy. Maybe his store got robbed a few times before shit went down, and the zombie outbreak finally pushed him over the edge. Steven isn't much of a challenge. He's pretty slow pushing his weaponized shopping cart, and outside of a shotgun for some long-range attacks, he doesn't have much of a moveset. His cart does have a weird hitbox though, so if you get too close while attacking him, you'll get flung backwards and stun-locked into taking multiple hits at once. So while he's not tough, some bad luck and positioning can easily get you killed.
Have a nice day. Clean up! Register 6!
After Steven's dramatic meltdown, he drops the pharmacy key. Frank recognizes the woman he's seen earlier in the entrance plaza and tries to help her, but she brushes him off. accusing his people of ruining Santa Cabeza, before vanishing again. With the first aid kit in hand, Frank returns to the security room and hands it over to a relieved Jesse. A few hours later, Brad's fever breaks, and Dr. Barnaby finally wakes up. But the moment he hears Santa Cabeza mentioned, he starts to panic. Jesse tries to calm him down, insisting the government just wants the truth, and they're totally not going to kill him. When Frank tries to listen in, she shuts the door on him and continues the interrogation in private. Still short on answers, Frank decides to track down the mystery woman from the supermarket, hoping she's finally ready to talk. But before that, it's time to catch up with our old pal Kent. Since no photo could ever hope to top one of our queen Jessie, we easily clear the erotica photo challenge. Still, Kent's not ready to admit defeat. He wants one more challenge and tells Frank to meet him again tomorrow at 12 p.m. to settle things once and for all. You know, there's definitely something off about Kent, but I gotta respect his integrity. He's the one who issued the challenge, he's the judge, and yet, he doesn't cheat, he doesn't lie, he even admits Frank's photo is good, though he tries to downplay it as luck. He really wants to win fair and square. It's just too bad that obsession ends up sending him into a downward spiral, but we'll come back to that later, as there's a survivor nearby who needs our help. Inside Jill's sandwiches, we find Ronald, who's already devoured everything in the restaurant. And somehow, this fat bastard is still hungry. He refuses to follow Frank unless you give him something to eat right then and there. Now, something I haven't mentioned yet is that a few rescued survivors will occasionally make requests. One wants a bottle of wine to calm their nerves, another asks for a handgun so she can go out on her own terms if she turns, and someone else just wants Frank to take modeling photos of her. Most of these requests are harmless and can be ignored, but not Ronald's. Within 6 hours of reaching the security room, he's already plowed through most of the food stash and is still complaining. If you don't beat him again in time, he'll rally 11 other survivors and lead them on a suicide mission into the mall to find food. None of them come back. Otis does warn you when Ronald starts stirring the pot, but seriously, this guy sparks a mutiny because he can't stop stuffing his face. And what really kills me is that anyone listens to him. He's the reason there's no food left in the first place. At least the next would-be mutineer has a legitimate concern, but we'll get to him later. I like the idea of potential mutinies on paper. It adds tension and realism to keeping a group alive, but in practice they're more of a nuisance. They just force you to drop whatever you're doing and babysit a grown adult who's mad that there aren't enough snacks. Next up is another psychopath, and she's one of the more infamous ones. Otis radios in about a police officer dragging a woman into a lovely fashion house in Wonderland Plaza. When Frank checks it out, he finds Joe Slade, an obese, sadistic cop who's taken several women hostage. She immediately starts harassing one of them, calling her a whore and rubbing her nightstick over her suggestively. You don't need much of an imagination to guess what Joe has planned. The scoop's notorious, not because of the cutscene, but because Joe is the only psychopath who starts killing her hostages as soon as her scoop activates, and you're standing in Wonderland Plaza. That means if you fuck around when you arrive, or decide to leave and come back, you might already be down a few survivors before the fight even starts. And even if you make it in time, Joe will still attack the women mid-battle if you're not careful. Since no other psychopath behaves like this, it catches a lot of first-time players off guard. But Joe herself isn't hard to beat, even without abusing the small chainsaw. She's slow, her AI is simple, and her only ranged option is a basic handgun. Her most annoying move is her taser, which she uses to stun Frank and then stomp him in the nuts, giving her time to either follow up or take a swing at a hostage. The real challenge is escorting all 4 women back to the security room afterwards. You can only arm one of them, and having 4 survivors tagging along leads to the usual issues, getting stuck, running into each other, or just falling behind. Escorting the ladies ended up being tougher than expected, mostly thanks to some bad timing. I hit Paradise Plaza just as a new enemy faction made their debut, the True Eye Cult. These lunatics think they can avoid becoming zombies by performing human sacrifices. They wear green masks and yellow raincoats, except for their leader, Sean, who struts around in white religious robes like he's running a doomsday sermon. We catch them mid-sacrifice, crash their little party, and save the woman they were about to kill. Sean slips away though, and we can't confront him until his scoop activates later. Until then, his followers start popping up across the mall in small groups. Ironically, despite being armed with knives and pipe bombs, they're usually less of a threat than the zombies. They just stand around doing nothing until you get close, and even then they're slow to react. Still, it's worth clearing them out when you can. They're great for farming prestige points, and at the very least, it's satisfying to shut down their nonsense before it spreads. Moving on, our next psychopath is waiting in the hardware store over in North Plaza. And this guy's a whole different beast than Joe.
Name and rank, soldier! You can't tell me, can you, fella? Oh yeah, I know why. It's because you're Viet Cong. I'm right, aren't I? You are nothing but a filthy communist! You, son, are gonna tell me where the gorilla's hideout is. By the time I'm done beating information out of you, you are gonna be begging for death to come take you away.
Cliff is probably the most tragic and sympathetic of the psychopaths. A Vietnam veteran, he snaps after failing to save his granddaughter. Her screams that she was eaten alive, triggering a brutal wave of PTSD. He loses his grip on reality and becomes trapped in a war flashback, convinced he's still fighting the Viet Cong. Despite being nearly 60 years old, Cliff's strong, fast, and unpredictable. He fights using hit-and-run tactics, charging in with a machete, then vanishing through trapdoors hidden around the store. It's easy to lose track of him, and he'll use that to ambush you from above with pipe bombs. While he can be tricky, I actually find him easier than Adam. The real challenge isn't surviving the fight, it's chasing after Cliff so you can actually hurt him. After defeating him, Cliff finally comes back to reality as he lays dying. He gives Frank a key to the nearby store, where he had some survivors locked up. Cliff explains what pushed him over the edge, and admits that for him, the war never really ended. Unlike with other psychopaths, Frank shows some emotion, maybe even regret. When Cliff finally passes, Frank closes the old man's eyes in a rare, quiet moment of empathy. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but for a guy who's covered wars, Frank might have seen this kind of trauma before. It's a completely optional scene, but it's also the first time Frank feels truly human, where chasing a scoop takes a back seat to simply understanding someone who's lost everything. Right after Otis radios in, he spotted the mystery woman from earlier, now riding a motorcycle outside the supermarket. She's still not ready to talk, so we get a brief boss fight that honestly isn't worth breaking down. Like with Carlito, her health bar gives her away before she even says her name. Isabella, Carlito's younger sister. After the fight, Frank manages to calm her down. She admits she's not here to kill him, but she still blames his people, meaning Americans, for creating the zombies. She also confirms that Carlito is behind the outbreak in Willamette, which was kinda obvious. This is his way of sending a message, exposing what really happened in Santa Cabeza. She won't explain further, but tells Frank if he wants answers, he'll need to hear it from her brother. She isn't sure he'll actually want to talk, but she'll promise to try. And they agree to meet again in North Plaza at midnight. Returning to the security room, Frank fills in the others about his encounter with Isabella, and Carlito's plan to expose the truth of Santa Cabeza. Dr. Barnaby chimes in with his own explanation. Santa Cabeza was a hub for the Central American drug trade, and a new drug is responsible for the outbreak. But his explanation is too vague and full of holes. Brad and Jesse don't look convinced, and it's clear from Barnaby's dodgy behavior that he's hiding something. Also, the first night already gave away that the zombies were created by parasites when the Wasp Queen starts showing up, so we know he's lying. The rest of day 2 is pretty uneventful. You'll mostly be killing time, waiting for midnight by clearing out some scoops, and with an encounter with 3 psychopaths, Roger Hall and his teenage sons Jack and Thomas, who've holed up on the second floor of the entrance plaza and are sniping people for fun. There's not much to say about the fight against the Hall family. It's essentially the same as the earlier encounter with Carlito. Once midnight rolls around, we'll head to the North Plaza and hopefully get some real answers. As Frank waits for Isabella, she suddenly bursts through the door, injured, screaming, and being attacked by a zombie. He saves her just in time, but her wound didn't come from the zombie. It was from her brother.
Were you bitten?
No, it was Carlito. I tried to talk him into coming, but it was no good. He doesn't trust anyone.
He shot you?
He didn't mean to. He was upset. I don't know what he'll do next.
Hey,
Faint and bleeding, Frank has to carry Isabella back to the security room. Then, just outside the hideout, we run into Kindle, a survivor clearing zombies with a shotgun. His sudden appearance feels a little random, but it's clearly the devs throwing us a bone, speeding things up so we're not constantly dropping Isabella to clear a path. He's not the most helpful backup, but we make it back without much trouble. Once inside, Frank explains to the others who Isabella is, and makes the case for trusting her. Carlito shot her after all. Brad, still recovering from Carlito's bullets himself, reluctantly agrees, and lets her stay. A few hours later, Isabella wakes up, and Brad jumps straight into questioning. She denies the rumors of a drug trade in Santa Cabeza, saying the truth is far worse. Dr. Barnaby had been running a research lab there, creating genetically engineered wasps that could turn living creatures into zombies. Some got loose, infected the townspeople, and triggered an outbreak. To contain the situation, and cover up US involvement, the military wiped out Santa Cabeza, and everyone in it. At some point, Barnaby himself was infected, probably by Carlito, and now starts turning. Before fully zombifying, he tries to justify the project, explaining the wasps were meant to help with livestock breeding to meet America's growing demand for meat. It's a not-so-subtle jab at American overconsumption. Still clinging to his pride, Barnaby finally turns, and Brad puts him down for good. Jesse's a little shaken, and Isabella, being a medical technician, offers to examine her. While she can't confirm whether Jesse was bitten, she doesn't find anything immediately life-threatening. All they can do now is let her rest and keep an eye on her closely. We've got a few hours before Carlito makes his next move, so it's a good time to deal with a couple of psychopaths. First stop, the movie theater, where the True Eye Colt and their leader Sean make their final stand. The old guy's got a ceremonial sword and decent speed, but I put him down in under 30 seconds. He drops a brainwashing book that makes rescued survivors more aggressive and willing to fight, which honestly isn't very useful this late in the game, along with a key to a nearby closet where another hostage Cheryl is being held. I wasn't paying attention, so I didn't even realize I had picked up a key, so I had to come back for her after escorting the rest of the survivors. Next, Otis calls about a long-haired punk spotted in casual gals at Wonderland Plaza. It's Paul, a wannabe arsonist threatening two women with Molotovs. He holds out a little longer than Sean, mostly because he takes off into the mall, chucking pipe bombs like candy as I chase him. Still, not a hard fight. Uniquely, Paul is one of the few psychopaths you can spare, too. After he accidentally sets himself on fire, you can save him with a nearby fire extinguisher. Do that, and he has a change of heart and joins the survivor group, eventually making Molotovs for Frank as thanks. Meanwhile, Carlito has been broadcasting across the mall's intercom, pleading with Isabella to forgive him. But when it becomes clear she's chosen Frank and the others, Carlito turns cold and declares he'll carry out his final plan, blowing up the entire mall. But as Isabella explains, it's not just a suicide bombing. Carlito's goal is to spread the infection. He's flooded the underground tunnels with flammable gas and planted multiple bombs. When they go off, the explosion will be strong enough to launch the zombie parasites into the atmosphere and scatter them across the US. I'm not sure that's really feasible, but hey, it's a video game. Just roll with it. With time running out, Frank and Brad head into the maintenance tunnels to disarm the bombs. But two problems show up immediately. First, it's time for one last showdown with Kent. We'll return to Colombian Roastmasters, where our photography rival has officially gone off the deep end. He's got a guy tied up and plans to infect him with a parasite larva, so he can photograph the exact moment of transformation. In his obsession to outdo Frank, he's completely lost his grip on reality. Kent puts up a good fight. He's fast, dodges often, and hits surprisingly hard, especially with his flying kick that can knock you flat, and combo into another strike. I had to back off once to heal, but the classic shotgun and small chainsaw combo got the job done. While that's happening, Kindle's been stirring up trouble back at the security room. He doesn't think the helicopter's coming and has convinced a few survivors they should grab weapons and make a break for it. His plan is to hotwire some cars and drive out through the parking lot. To stop the mutiny, all you have to do is talk to him. Frank lays out the obvious. Even if they got a car, there's no way they'd make it past the military blockade. The helicopter, on the other hand, has already slipped past them once, and Frank's got it scheduled to return. Kindle sees the logic and backs down. Alright, time to stop Carlito's plan. To access the maintenance tunnels, we head behind Leisure Park to the small parking lot near the entrance, leading to the underground. The bombs are marked on your map, but disarming them is anything but easy. The tunnels are huge and absolutely swarming with zombies. Getting around on foot is not an option. Thankfully, there's a motorcycle parked just outside. It handles like trash, but it's fast and cuts through the undead like butter. Just don't count on it lasting long. After enough hits or too many crashes, it'll break down. Luckily, there are cargo trucks in the tunnels you can hijack as backup. The real challenge comes from planning a route to grab all 5 bombs in time, while also avoiding Carlito. He's driving around down there like a maniac, ramming you, blocking your path, and lobbing grenades. If he blows up your ride too far from the next vehicle, you're done. There's no time to hoof it with that many zombies in your way. It took me a few tries, but by staying one step ahead of Carlito, and swapping rides when needed, I managed to grab all the bombs and escape before the clock ran out. Unfortunately, it's not a clean win. Brad tracks Carlito to the maintenance tunnel warehouse, and tries to stop him, only to get stabbed and locked out as Carlito escapes. He's left wounded, alone, and surrounded by hundreds of zombies. And if you had some hope he makes it, head back to the warehouse after the case ends, and you'll get one final heartbreaking moment with Brad.
Don't get any closer. Stay away, Frank. Don't get near me.
What's the matter, Brad? Are you hurt? I'm coming over there, Brad. We'll go back together. If you're hurt, we'll patch you up.
I'm screwed. It doesn't hurt. Not even a little. I'm already dead. Frank. Don't tell Jesse about this.
Oof, I'd completely forgotten the zombie store's insides out. What a way to go. R.I.P. Brad. Oh, and before heading to the security room, it's a good idea to enter the warehouse to grab the maintenance tunnel key. Now you can access the tunnels from several areas in the mall, and use them as a convenient shortcut during the upcoming events of the story. Back at the security room, Jesse's looking a lot better, healthy again and in good spirits. She's hopeful this whole nightmare will finally be over, once Brad returns with Carlito in custody. Frank, though, doesn't have the heart to tell her the truth. Honoring Brad's dying wish, he keeps what happened in the tunnels to himself, and shifts the focus to the next step, finding Carlito. He asks Isabella if her brother had any kind of backup plan. She doesn't think so, but mentions that they might find something on his laptop, which is stashed at his hideout in the North Plaza. Turns out her brother's hideout is tucked away in a crawl space above an empty store, only accessible through a ceiling hatch. Once inside, Isabella finds his laptop and tries to access it, but Carlito wasn't careless. He password protected the laptop, and he didn't use password 1, his birthday, or Carlito is cool as his password either. Unless you work in IT, or have boomer parents who barely understand how to use their iPhones, you'd be surprised how many people still do the bare minimum to password protect their devices, if at all in 2025. Oh, and remember how Jessie couldn't get through to Homeland Security earlier because her signal was being jammed? Yeah, that was Carlito too. And apparently we can't just smash the jamming device to bits. We need to access his laptop to disable it. So Isabella gets to work trying to guess the password, in what might be the most awkward laptop typing position ever, on her elbows and knees. It's probably just for like some eye candy fan service, but there's no way she's comfortable typing like that. Back at the security room, Jessie spots something strange on the monitors. It's Carlito. He's alive, but barely. He's being dragged away by someone into the basement of the butcher shop in North Plaza. That someone is our final psychopath, Larry Chang. So I wasn't going to bring up the deluxe remaster again, but one change that was probably for the best was completely redesigning Larry. Because once you see how he looks and hear how he talks in the original, you'll seriously wonder how Capcom didn't catch some heat for this dude's design, even back in 2006.
Ah, a customer.
That guy over there. I mean, that meat.
Oh, this is good meat, huh? I just got it in here. It's fresh. You just wait right there, sir. In a moment, you can try the best ground meat you've ever tasted.
Whoa, ground? Wait a minute, listen. I had something else in mind.
Zombies are no good. I can't serve my customers spoiled meat like that. I have a reputation to uphold.
What I didn't realize at the time is that the fight with Larry is actually on a timer. If you take too long, Carlito gets dragged into the meat grinder and turned into ground chuck, failing the case. I'm not sure what the exact time limit is, but luckily I didn't cut it too close. That said, Larry's still a pain. Armed with a hatchet, he's disturbingly fast for his size. He can hook Frank on a meat rack, chuck knives and slabs of meat, and when he's low on health, he'll start scarfing down meat from a bucket to heal. All his attacks hit like a truck, and this was one of the few fights where I ditched the small chainsaw in favor of the SMG and shotgun, keeping my distance. Once Larry goes down, Frank rushes to Carlito, who's barely clinging to life after his run-ins with Brad and Larry. In his final moments, Carlito comes clean, confirming what Isabella had said earlier. This whole outbreak was revenge for Santa Cabeza, a response to the government sacrificing innocent people in the name of feeding America's endless hunger for meat. Frank doesn't condone Carlito's actions, but he understands. He promises to tell the whole world the truth. He just needs the password. Carlito, fading fast, mutters one last bitter jab at America, that people here are no better than zombies. All they do is consume and multiply. In his final breath, he swears this isn't over, handing Frank his locket and asking him to give it to Isabella before dying. I'll be honest, considering Carlito is the main antagonist of the game, his death never really sat right with me. Sure, I get the irony. His people were slaughtered because of a failed experiment to mass-produce meat, and he ends up dying at the hands of a butcher trying to literally grind him into meat. It's a twisted bit of poetic justice, especially since Larry's descent into madness was a direct consequence of Carlito triggering the outbreak in Willamette. But narratively, it falls a little flat. Carlito was a constant threat throughout the game. He fought us multiple times, stayed 2 steps ahead, and drove nearly every major point in the story. To have him killed off by a random psychopath we just met at the 11th hour robs the story of a meaningful climax. It would have landed so much better if Carlito's death came at the hands of someone with a personal stake. Frank, or maybe Jesse in order to avenge Brad. Or maybe Isabella's the one to stop him. By this point, Carlito has alienated his sister with his obsession for revenge. His only family and connection to Santa Cabeza. Having her be the one forced to pull the trigger to stop him would have been heartbreaking. But it would have brought his arc full circle in a better way. Now, Larry killing Carlito could have worked, if that were the end of the story, but it's not. There's still a chunk of the game left, and Carlito's absence creates a vacuum that nothing in the finale manages to fill. His premature death leaves the final stretch feeling a little aimless, like the game loses its center of gravity. For me, it's the only real blemish on an otherwise excellent and memorable experience. Returning to Carlito's hideout, Frank breaks the news to Isabella. He tells her Carlito didn't give up anything useful before he died, but he did pass along a locket he wanted her to have. Isabella opens it, sees a photo of their family, and quietly breaks down. Through her tears, something clicks. She types a word into Carlito's laptop, Pachamama, something their parents used to say back in Santa Cabeza, meaning Mother Earth. Just like that, they're in. With the jamming device now disabled, Jesse finally gets through to Homeland Security and reports everything that's happened. But later that night, she calls Frank in a panic. The government decided to bury the whole thing. No rescue, no press. Instead, they're sending in special forces at midnight to wipe the slate clean. Zombies and survivors. Not long after, a couple of soldiers show up. One stands guard outside the security room. The other talks to Jesse. Since she works for Homeland Security, they offer her a deal. Sign an NDA, stay quiet about what happened, and she can walk away quietly. Jesse doesn't say a thing. She's given up. Everything she and Brad did amounted to nothing. No one was brought to justice. The people she wanted to save will die to cover everything up. Immediately after, there's a scream heard from the security room. The guard outside investigates and finds a zombified Jesse tearing his buddy's throat out. It looks like she was infected by Dr. Barnaby after all. Return to the security room, and you'll find the corpses of both soldiers. You'll find Jesse too. Just another shambling corpse. Poor Jesse. You deserve better than this. Still would, though. The security room is eerily quiet now. There's no sign of all the survivors you saved. Look around and you'll find a note left by Otis. When the special forces arrived, they started snatching people up, and during the confusion, he managed to steal a chopper and escape, taking all the survivors with him. He wishes Frank good luck, and if they ever cross paths again, drinks are on him. Well, that feels a little contrived, but okay. At the stroke of midnight, special forces storm the mall. From here until morning, they become your biggest threat, inhabiting every area of the mall, using drones to patrol for survivors while also whittling down the zombie population. What happens next depends on your choices throughout the game, which determine which ending you get. I won't break down every ending, but key factors include how many survivors you saved, whether you solved all the cases, if you meet Ed on the rooftop at noon, and whether you talk to Isabella at 10 AM on the final day. In my case, I was on track for ending A, which leads to the true ending. I wrapped up every case, rescued most of the survivors, met with Isabella at 10 after the military pulled out, and got my ass to the rooftop right on time. But unfortunately for Frank, things don't go the way he hoped.
Well, I'll be damned. He's still alive. That son of a bitch made it. That must mean he got his scoop. I can't wait to get my share of the take. Woo! Yeah! All right. You just hang tight, buddy. I'm on my way.
Hey! 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 I'm over here!
I see you, buddy! I see you! Yeah! I'm on my way! Yeah! Yeah, you did it! You did it! Yeah! Yeah!
His ride killed by a zombie that somehow snuck onto his helicopter, Frank falls to his knees, defeated as zombies slowly swarm him. All hope is lost, the Giants failed, Majora wins, and the moon destroys Termina. Roll credits. Actually, it's not over yet. We've unlocked overtime mode. One final shot to escape and tell the world the truth. Isabella shows up just in time to save Frank, but he passes out soon after. When he wakes up, things have gone from bad to worse. He's infected. Isabella notes that he seems more resistant than most, but it's only a matter of time before he turns. I've always had mixed feelings about this twist. There's no moment that shows Frank getting infected. It just happens. Gameplay-wise, he's been bitten 1,000 times, sure, but story-wise, it feels like an asshole. No setup, no payoff. The twist could have worked with just a bit of context. If we'd seen Frank get scratched while saving Isabella at the helipad, just a quick moment, it wouldn't feel cheap. A nice little emotional payoff. Frank saves her, she saves him. No dramatic speech needed, just a silent look or a wince. Just a little effort to keep it from being an asshole, you know? But even without that setup, it's not a total loss. Isabella's working on a suppressant. Not a cure, but something that might buy Frank enough time to escape and expose the truth. She gives him a list of ingredients, and we've got 24 in-game hours to track them all down before he turns. After gathering the supplies, the generator powering her lab craps out, forcing Frank to grab a replacement from the clock tower in Leisure Park. Turns out Ed's helicopter crashed into the tower when he went down, revealing a tunnel that runs beneath the mall, one crawling with zombies. With the new generator installed, Isabella needs 10 Wasp Queens to extract their enzymes for the suppressant. They're easy to find, but depending on your inventory size, you'll be making a few trips to drop them off. While Frank's running around, Isabella uncovers Carlito's final long-term plan, one that started before the outbreak. Using a prototype suppressant, he infected 50 orphans with the zombie parasite, then had them adopted across the country, each one a ticking time bomb, waiting for the drug to wear off. Whether Willem had succeeded or not never mattered. He already won. For all Frank knows, outbreaks are happening across the country as he runs errands in the mall. So now, it's not just about escaping or telling the truth, it's about warning the world what's coming. As she refines the suppressant, Isabella also creates a zombie-repelling pheromone perfume. Once Frank gets his shot and avoids turning, for now, they put the plan into motion. Using the perfume to slip past the undead, they follow the tunnel beneath the clock tower to a sewage treatment plant. With the horde drawing attention from the military, they hijack a Humvee and make a run for it. That is, until a goddamn tank shows up and cuts them off. Cue an on-rails boss fight against the tank. It's not too bad. More intimidating than anything. If you keep your turret fire focused on those green lights on the front of the tank, you'll take it out pretty quickly, even with all its missiles and drones flying around. The bigger threat is the asshole driving the tank, leader of the Special Forces, Brock Mason.
Oh, shit.
Well, what have we here? Where were you hiding when my men mopped up the mall? On a mission in which the number of targets is unclear, it's difficult to ensure absolute thoroughness. You have imagination. That's what drives you in your quest to run. Your quest to hide. As prey, you and your kind are much more stubborn than the zombies.
Turns out Brock was in charge of the cleanup operation at Santa Cabeza. He's a cold, no-nonsense military man who follows orders without question. There's a flicker of regret when he admits that if things had gone smoothly in Santa Cabeza, he wouldn't be here now cleaning up another mess. But it's not enough to make him sympathetic. He's here to finish the job and make sure Frank and Isabella don't escape. Cue the final boss fight. And yeah, it kinda sucks. First, Brock as a character just doesn't measure up. Compared to Carlito, who had layers, personal stakes, and a twisted ideology, Brock is flat and forgettable. He's a roadblock with a name. Second, the fight itself is a mess. You're stripped of all your weapons, items, and healing, and it's just a bare-knuckle brawl on top of a moving tank. But this isn't some epic, cinematic slugfest like Snake vs. Liquid Ocelot. Brock blocks constantly, barely flinches from your attacks, and doesn't leave himself open very often. He doesn't hit especially hard, but he will knock you flying, and usually right into the zombie horde below. Die and you have to redo the entire tank section before trying again. What really drags this fight down isn't Brock, it's Frank, specifically his clunky unarmed combat moves. The special skills you unlock throughout the game might look cool on paper, but most of them are unreliable in a real fight. Some require awkwardly timed inputs. Press attack at the exact moment you land from a jump to do a roundhouse kick, or press it at the height of your jump for a somersault kick. But good luck pulling them off consistently. Hitboxes are iffy, animations have odd delays, and it often feels like Frank is fighting the controls more than Brock. And really, that's the root problem. Most of Frank's melee skills were built for crowd control against slow, shambling zombies, not agile, aggressive bosses. There is a wrestling book you can carry that boosts those moves, but of course, you can't bring it into this fight. Thankfully, there's a cheese tactic. Brock always takes a big, floaty leap between the top and bottom levels of the tank, stand on the lower level, wait for him to jump, and smack him as he lands. Even better, if you bait him toward the edge between tiers, you can spam somersault kicks or knee drops for easy hits. With the right rhythm, you can drop him in under a minute. Once he's down, Brock tumbles off the tank into the zombie swarm below, and with that, Dead Rising comes to an end. Man, I forgot just how abruptly the game ends. The final boss is kind of a dud, sure, but the actual ending works, especially when you see it as a love letter to the zombie films that inspired the game. It's sudden, it's bittersweet, and it leaves you with this ominous feeling of uncertainty. Frank and Isabel are surrounded by a notion of the dead, with no clear way out. It's got that classic Romero-style bleakness. But I think the devs were worried it might come off as too bleak, so they added a written epilogue after the credits to assure players that Frank did survive. Somehow. According to the text, Frank escapes Willamette with proof of what happened in Santa Cabeza. His story causes just enough of a stir that the US government admits partial responsibility for the livestock research program that caused the original outbreak. But any connection to Willamette? Denied. The official story blames everything on a fringe terrorist group. Classic government cover-up. And then, like so many real-world tragedies, the whole thing just fades away. Lost in the flood of 24-hour news cycles and short attention spans. It's not exactly subtle. This ending takes a jab at how society is so desensitized to horror and death that even something this massive can be forgotten the moment the next headline hits. Which, has only gotten worse in modern day, hasn't it? Yikes. As for Carlito's master plan, infecting orphans across the country with dormant zombie parasites, it's left unresolved. We don't know if it's real or just a paranoid fantasy, but considering Dead Rising went on to have 3 sequels, it's safe to say Carlito didn't entirely fail. Beating overtime mode and getting the true ending also nets you a few nice rewards, like most of Mega Man X's outfit, which you can use in a fresh playthrough. But the big unlock is Infinity Mode, Dead Rising's take on a survival mode. There's no story, no timers, just pure endurance. Frank's health constantly drains over time, food items are scarce and don't respawn, and every survivor and psychopath from the story shows up again, but now as hostile enemies in different locations. Your only goal is to survive for as long as possible. Oh, and you can't save. Once you die, that's it. Run over. It's absolutely brutal. But if you somehow manage to survive for 5 in-game days, which is about 6 real-world hours by the way, you'll unlock the Z-Saber-inspired laser sword to cut through zombies like hot butter. And that was Dead Rising. So does it hold up all these years later? Absolutely. It's every bit as fun as I remember. After replaying it, I'm reminded why Dead Rising still hits so hard. The mall is the perfect sandbox. Spacious, dense with detail, and packed with creative ways to kill zombies. The combat is pure but satisfying. The variety of weapons never gets old. And the psychopaths are as unhinged and memorable as I remember. Frank's still a fantastic lead. Quirky, determined, and with a few more layers than I realized. The story's great too. A sharp and satirical homage to George Romero's zombie films, with just enough bite to say something without getting preachy. What impresses me most is how well it balances tone. It tells a serious story about loss, government conspiracy, and revenge, while it lets you run around dressed like an idiot, take out zombies with toys, or battle a chainsaw-wielding clown without ever undermining the drama. That tightrope walk between over-the-top absurdity and heartfelt sincerity, it's the same magic I love in the Yakuza series. Somehow it all just works. Oh, by the way, I'm covering Yakuza 2 soon. Sure, it's got issues. The survivor AI is dumb as bricks, the hand-to-hand combat feels clunky, especially in that final fight, and the story definitely stumbles during overtime mode. But none of that ruins the experience. Not even close. Dead Rising was a breath of fresh air when it launched, and nearly 20 years later, it still feels like something totally unique. I'm glad it was successful enough to spawn a whole franchise, even if the sequels got progressively worse until the absolute rock bottom that was Dead Rising 4. And while the recent deluxe remaster was a low-effort blow-up that stripped away a lot of the original's charm, for the sake of shinier visuals, the original version is still easy to find and well worth playing today. I'm just glad I finally got around to talking about one of my all-time favorite games. And that's the video. Thanks for watching, folks. And special thanks to my channel members and patrons, including Alfred Correa, Bailey Morrison, Brad Taylor, Eric Lee, Gonkdroid the Critic, Skillfuse, SR Powa, Thundermuffin, and Reckless Nerd. If you would like to support the channel, you could do so for as low as $3 a month, which will give you early access, ad-free videos, and occasionally uncut videos when I'm forced to censor things for YouTube. Higher tiers will land your name in the credits, or a verbal shoutout. I'm seriously late with this video, so I'm just going to keep the outro short. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, and comment down below with your thoughts. Do you want to see me cover Dead Rising 2, Case West, the rest of the franchise? Post your thoughts down below. And if you're new to the channel, I'd love it if you subscribed. We're on the road to 100k subscribers and that shiny silver plaque, so every little bit helps. I'm FuzzySlippers, and I'll see you later. Peace.